Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are
the FAIRtax Guys.
And again, if you're listening to a podcast or listening on a radio station and you wonder what that sound is, it's our scrolling banner that you can get at the new FAIRtax store. And if they ever get back to having in-person town halls, you can just stick one of these in your back pocket and take it in there. And when they're talking, you pull it apart. It's
very effective.
Maybe 2.5 feet, maybe wide, maybe 2 feet wide.
Yep.
But whatever. It just says FAIRtax, and so that gets your message through.
It's a great little tool for spreading influence amongst the elected officials.
Oh yes, our dearly beloved elected officials who keep messing with the tax code. So we're not going to do Congress.gov this segment, but go back to last week's episode and see what kind of the crazy things they're trying to put into the tax code.
Unbelievable. The question is out there. They want to make diapers deductible.
Said qualified medical expenses.
Qualified medical expense. And the burning question is that baby diapers or adult diapers?
I don't know. Maybe they'll have the text in it published by that time. We can go check it out. But we need to be moving along here on FAIRtax Power Radio. As always, we've got lots of stuff to cover. And one of the things that we get asked all the time, does President Trump know about the fair tax? And our question has always been, our answer has always been, he's surrounded by people who know about the fair tax. Vice President Pence was a co-sponsor when he was in Congress.
Yeah.
Mike Huckabee is certainly a big fair tax supporter, and his daughter was the press secretary for a while.
That's right.
So the president is no doubt surrounded by people who do know about the fair tax. But we found a piece of video. I don't know how old this is, but it looks to be
a couple... 2015.
Okay.
And I saw it, and it said, candidate Trump talks about simplifying the tax code. So it was after he announced for president in 2015.
This was before he became president.
Right.
This little video clip was taken. But roll it here real quick, and let's take a listen to what Mr. Trump had to say.
Yeah, take a look.
What would you do about the tax code in the United States?
You got to simplify it. At a minimum, simplify it. Too complicated. I spend millions of dollars a year for lawyers and for accountants to do my taxes. Let me tell you, everybody wants to pay as little as possible, including Warren Buffett, by the way, despite what he says. And somebody said, what's your tax rate? I don't know. I pay as little as possible because I'm an honest guy. I say it like it is. You have to simplify the tax code at a minimum. Now, you could go to the fair tax, the flat tax. There's a lot of things you could go to. But at a minimum, you have to simplify the tax code.
Now, how about that? He mentions the fair tax by name.
Yeah.
So he is obviously aware of the fair tax. So there's good news and bad news in that clip.
Well, yeah, there's even though it was only about 40 seconds, there's some stuff to analyze. Plus, I have to admit, I'm kind of embarrassed. How long we found this on fairtax.org/videos. Go to fairtax.org/videos, and there it is. I wonder how long it's been there.
I
didn't know it was there. One of our, and I have to give a shout out to Laura McHugh of North Carolina. She's the one that put it in one of her email blasts, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. And then I thought, oh, that's on fairtax.org.
That means there's so much stuff there that you can go through it in quite a while and not find it all. But I say, the good news and the bad news. The good news, of course, is that the president is aware of the fair tax because he called it by name.
Yeah, absolutely.
The bad news is that he's done like one of the bunch of other folks do all the time, just galls my gizzard, drives your wife up a wall when somebody talks about fair tax and flat tax in the same sentence as if they're fairly interchangeable, and it really doesn't matter which one you use. But both of them may simplify the tax code, at least that's what he says, but I don't believe it. Only one of them will actually simplify the tax code. Yeah. If you go to a flat tax, you are not fundamentally changing the system. You are still keeping the payroll tax, you're still keeping withholding, you're still taxing income, you still have to file a tax return.
Yeah.
I mean, all the nasty things that come with an income tax remain with the flat tax, and in order to change the current income tax system we've got into a flat tax, what do? You got to add more code to the statute.
Jeez. And The only people who make out well with the flat tax are the lobbyists. This is job security for the lobbyists because they get to start all over again. And they're very good at what they do. Remember that episode in which we talked about lobbyists from OpenSecrets.com? Okay?
Oh, yeah.
There are 12,000 lobbyists in D.C., and many of them, after the government programs, pharmaceuticals, and then next is the tax code, is the heaviest lobbying efforts. All right?
I tell you, we need to dig back into some more of these lobbying kind of stuff. But right now, let me tell people what they need to do. They need to go to House.gov/contact. There's a contact function there where you can contact the president and remind him that the fair tax and the flat tax are as different as night and day.
Yep.
And only one of them will simplify the tax code. The fair tax simplifies the tax code by getting rid of the entire all of it, lock, stock, and barrel. So you simplify it by getting rid of the 70,000 plus pages of statutes and regulations and tax court decisions and stuff. Get rid of every bit of that and replace it with this 132-page bill, fair tax bill, most of which is referencing statutes that will be repealed. It does not take 132 pages to describe how the fair tax will work. So if you really want, he mentioned in that clip several times, simplify, simplify, simplify.
Yeah.
You've got to simplify the tax code. There's only one way to do it. The flat tax won't do it. If you want to simplify the tax code, get rid of it and replace it with a fair tax. And so we need to go on the contact function there at whitehouse.gov and remind the president, of his own words, that we need to simplify the tax code. But Mr. President, you didn't quite have it right. You've only got one alternative that's going to do that, and that's the fair tax.
Yeah. Now, it is interesting what he's been doing over the last 3.5-4 years to actually simplify it. Lately, he's been talking about getting rid of the payroll tax. And, of course, the knee-jerk reaction from those people in the media who don't really understand, the payroll tax does not go to Social Security and Medicare anymore. It goes into the general fund. All right, so
because they keep stealing from the Social Security and Medicare lock boxes, if you will.
No, but the disadvantage of the payroll tax, it is the most regressive tax we have, and I believe he knows that. All right, so he wants to get rid of the payroll tax that hurts the people that can least afford it. All right, no matter how little you're making, they're going to take out payroll tax, and there's no deductions or exemptions or any qualified plans to get rid of it.
Yeah.
You're gonna be subject to the payroll tax no matter no matter how little you make. However, if you make over 137,700, they stop taxing the payroll tax at that level.
But do you know how this is going to come out in the fake news? The president wants to get rid of Social Security and Medicare.
And they've tried that. I actually had a cousin who fell subject to that. He thought he was going to lose Social Security and Medicare. No, that's not going to happen because Social Security and Medicare is paid for out of the general fund. In fact, you put it, there's if you look at the Medicare, Social Security and Medicare lockbox, well, there really isn't one. It's full of IOUs. It's not. It doesn't have money in it. It's got IOUs.
That money's been raided a long time ago.
68.
But, getting rid of the payroll taxes that support a program or supposedly support a program is not the same thing, Mr. Fake News, as getting rid of the program. You're just simply changing the funding source.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you change and think about it. You mentioned it. The only people who are supporting Social Security and Medicare by paying those payroll taxes are people that are working for a paycheck. And once you reach this 137,000, which most people don't, but the higher earners do, they no longer have to pay into the system. So those two really major programs are being funded by a tiny sliver of the population. Tell you what. He's got the right idea. Let's get rid of the payroll taxes. But instead of funding it out of the income tax, let's expand the tax base to everybody who buys things, whose spending rises above the poverty level for their household size. And that's what the fair tax will do. And the flat tax won't.
No. No, and the lobbyists will be lined up if it's known that Congress is going to pass a flat tax and the president's going to sign it. The lobbyists will be right there, pen in hand, waiting to go schmooze the Congress people. And we've got some good information about these lobbyists.
So, Mr. President, you're half right. You are right. You have to simplify the tax code, but you're only half right in thinking that either the fair tax or the flat tax will do that. The fair tax will. The flat tax won't. The flat tax will just bring the lobbyists out of the woodwork. And you found this little article, 5 crazy facts about lobbyists. Now, where is this published? This is represent.us.
Yep.
That's the name of the website.
Yep.
Action 5 facts about lobbyists. I assume if you find that website, you can find this thing. And the very first point it raises, lobbyists raise gobs of money for elected officials. You think? This is what you get with a flat tax now, okay?
This has got some amazing stuff in it. I found this today, and I showed it to my wife, and we were just amazed. That first paragraph, the average senator has to pull in more than $14,000 every single day just to stay in office. Now, we did a little calculating here.
Yeah.
We believe that's every day they're in session.
Yeah, we ran a little math and multiply that $14,000 by every single day in a Senate term, and that comes out to be like $30 million that their campaign would cost. And if you change that back down to every day the Senate's in session, it comes down to about $12 million, which sounds like a little more reasonable figure. But anyway, you look at it on a per day basis, and it's that 14,000 is probably not that far off. They didn't source it, so you kind of take that with a grain of salt. But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt here and say, if you're having to pull in more than $14,000 a day to fund your campaign to stay in office, how do you raise that much money? Not from me.
Here's how it works. Let's say you're a bank and you want to buy influence.
That's illegal, isn't it?
With a senator on the banking committee, so he'll vote your way on the upcoming bill. The easiest way would be to just give $100,000 directly to the senator's reelection campaign. But alas, that would be illegal. Federal law prohibits companies from making direct donations to candidates. So instead, you hire a lobbying firm. And remember 12,000 lobbyists in the D.C. area? Yeah. Okay. So, and here's where things get corrupt. That lobbying firm can legally organize a swanky fundraiser that brings $100,000 to the senator's reelection campaign. At the fundraiser, your lobbyist just happens to have a friendly chat with your feelings on the banking policy with the senator's staff. So at the end of the day, the senator is up $100,000. He knows exactly where the $100,000 came from. He knows which way to vote on the bill if he wants the money to keep flowing. But this time, nobody's broken any laws. All right.
Ooh.
This says a lot. All right.
That's what you get with the flat tax.
Yeah, that's right. The flat tax, they will just start all over again. Like I said, the flat tax is job security for the lobbyists.
Now, let me ask you a question. Who writes the laws?
Well, the staffers and the people in Congress do.
Where's your little buzzer? Wrong. Lobbyists write the laws. Literally.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah, take a look at these. This article again says, take a look at the 2014 omnibus budget deal. Congress used that deal to secretly put taxpayers back on the hook for bank bailouts. In 2014, our representatives repealed a law that prevented the American people from bailing out big banks that engage in risky derivative trading. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. The New York Times reports that 70 of the 85 lines in the language that killed that bill came from a piece of model legislation drafted by Citigroup lobbyists. Yes, that Citigroup, the bank that played a major role in the 2008 financial crisis and received billions of federal stimulus dollars. Is that what you want, Mr. President? Because that's what you're going to get if you support the flat tax.
Yeah, and this is what has been happening for decades now. And with, again, with a flat tax, it's not going to stop. They're just going to kick it up into high gear. The lobbyists will become very wealthy. Yep. And we also have some information on some very wealthy members of Congress, don't we?
The same report revealed that 2 crucial paragraphs prepared by Citigroup in conjunction with other Wall Street banks were copied nearly word for word.
Oh, jeez.
This is what you're getting with the flat tax, folks. I mean, we're going to pound that home until it gets through your head. That the fair tax and the flat tax are nowhere near the like. This is what you get with the flat tax. The fair tax gets rid of all this.
Yeah,
the fair tax gets rid of all this, because with the fair tax, you pay it at the cash register. There are no exemptions, no legal loopholes. The only exemption they say is for educational expenses, for tuition. That would not be subject to the fair tax. And of course, used items aren't subject to the fair tax either. But you're not going to have lobbyists literally by the thousands trying to change the fair tax law, because its beauty is it's just so simple. You can do this and get away with it, because you just bury this kind of stuff in the 70,000 pages of income tax, which would still remain if we have the flat tax, Mr. President.
Yeah. And, now, as they say on those infomercials, but wait, there's more.
Yeah. Order now, you get a second one free. Just paid more shipping.
And that's pretty much what happens with our congressmen. Not only do they get nice deposits or contributions to their campaign cash, their campaign coffers, but lobbyists effectively bribe members of Congress with lucrative job offers. Okay, like, who was it that? Old soldiers never go away. They just never die. They just slowly fade away. Same with Congress people. They really don't go away. They just get lucrative lobbyist jobs. Okay?
Yeah, after they leave Congress.
Yeah.
And they make millionaires out of themselves while they're in Congress, and then goes on steroids but really, how can you do this? If you will vote my way on this bill, I will let you come to work for me when you are no longer in Congress, and you can make 3 times what you're making now.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. All right, they do offer them routinely when they decide to leave Congress. All right, lucrative jobs as lobbyists, because they know everybody in Congress. If you've been there more than a few years, they know the halls of Congress. They know the way Congress works. So that's very valuable knowledge.
Yeah, this is former lobbyist Jack Abramoff. This is a quote from him. You got to read this. Jack Abramoff would say, "I would say to whatever the member of Congress is, when you're done working on the Hill, we'd very much like you to consider coming to work for us." The moment I said that, we own them. The lobbyist owns the Congress critters. What does that mean? Every request from our office, every request from our clients, everything that we want, they're going to do for us.
Yeah. And they even call it the revolving door, okay? The phenomenon of members of Congress heading off to work for lobbying firms and their clients is known as the revolving door. And it's become shockingly common.
And every time somebody proposes that they're put kind of a moratorium, if you leave Congress, you can't become a lobbyist for 2 years, somehow that never makes it through.
Yes.
And that's just the lobbyists we know about.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's got the shocking fact number 4. Politicians who walk through the revolving door are in for a massive raise.
Absolutely. So yeah, you come out of Congress, you go to work for one of these firms on K Street, and FTPR a while back, we went through the actual number of dollars that these lobbyists spread around. It is insane.
Yeah.
It's usually somebody else's money. It's their client's money that they're
That's right.
With.
For 2019, I remember that episode, the total spent by lobbyists in D.C. was $3.51 billion with a B.
Yeah, this thing says it's a 1,452% raise.
Wow.
And Congress critters make pretty good money already compared to what the rest of us get.
Yeah, but you know what? There's one thing they're forgetting.
What's that?
Their campaign fund. If they don't spend it all, all right, if there's money left in there when they leave Congress, they get to keep it. So they get their salary, plus they get to keep their campaign fund when they leave Congress. That's a nice little bonus, isn't it?
Mercy. And again, this is what you're asking for if you go with the flat tax. The flat tax, we've seen this before. They flattened it out in 1986. We make a lot of references to the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 when we're doing Congress.gov. That's how long ago we flattened it out, and look at what we've got now. We say that the flat tax will stay flat for about as long as it takes for the ink to dry on the president's signature to sign it into law, because as soon as that happens, these lobbyists are going to come back after the flat tax.
Oh, yeah.
So, Mr. President, the fair tax and the flat tax are not the same thing. They're not even close.
No.
And y'all need to go to Whitehouse.gov and drive that point home for us. The more he hears that from more different people, the more likely he is to finally get through to him.
Whitehouse.gov/contact.
Correct.
Yep, Whitehouse.gov/contact, and you can send your message directly to the president. Mm-hmm. All right.
Now, researchers estimate, this is in point 5, researchers estimate that there's actually twice as much lobbying as what is publicly disclosed.
Oh my word.
Making the business of influencing politicians a $7 billion a year industry. Again, I'd suggest that you go to that opensecrets.org site that Steve Hayes pointed us to.
Yeah.
Get into that lobbying section. We went through just a small portion of it here on FAIRtax Power Radio not long ago. The numbers will stagger your mind. They really will. And that's it. So what happens when the lobbyists are throwing around all of this money? The Congress critters get rich.
Oh, they do. And so you've got...
So that's why the Congress critters are going to be really hard to convince to get rid of this system and replace it with the fair tax. But let's look at some of the wealthiest members in the current 116th Congress.
Yeah, speaking of open secrets...
Yeah, who do you think... Yeah, this comes from Open Secrets. So now we're back on the opensecrets.org website.
Yep.
Now, actually, the wealthiest guy in the House is someone I've never heard of. Greg Glanfort. He's from Montana, worth 189. Let's see, that's $1 million. I'm trying to see what that says. Yeah, estimated net worth.
Now, there's a question: how many of these people were very wealthy when they went to Congress? And how many of them became millionaires while serving in Congress?
Well, being that a lot of them serve in Congress for 40 years, their entire career, they never have a private sector job.
That's right.
A lot of them that become millionaires in Congress because that's the only job they've ever done.
They went from college to maybe they served as on somebody's staff and so forth, and then they ran for office.
Yeah.
All they've ever known is the public sector. They've never worked in the private sector.
Yeah,
all right.
Well,
those are the people we need to beware of. All right.
No, there are some that were quite wealthy before they became politicians. In fact, if you flip that over to the Senate side, look at the wealthiest senator. That's one of ours, Rick Scott.
Yeah.
From Florida. Now, he was an executive in a hospital chain before he went to work in the Senate. So, in fact, he has not been a career politician all his life. He was the governor here for a while. Now he's been a senator. So he's been in, quote, public service for quite a good while now. But he made the bulk of his money before he became a politician. $259 million that Rick Scott is worth, according to opensecrets.org.
So he's not going to the Senate to get rich. He already is fabulously rich.
Yeah, Mitt Romney's on that same list for the same reason, $174 million. Dianne Feinstein. Now there's a career politician for you. Net worth of $87, almost $88 million for Senator Feinstein.
And how long has she been in Congress?
How long has dirt been around? I don't know.
That's one way to put it.
Probably longer than I've been alive. But Mitch McConnell's on that list. He's the 9th most.
Yeah.
If you go back to the House again, you see Nancy Pelosi's on the list.
And you know, there's a quote by Harry Truman. Harry Truman was known as being very frank, you know. And one of the things that he said is the effect of, you can't get rich in politics unless you're a crook. Okay, so the people who are fabulously wealthy and get elected to office, okay, that's what they want to do. I mean, if I was worth $260 million, I don't think I'd be running for office. I'd be out there playing golf every day and making generous donations to the Fair Tax Organization.
There you go.
Okay, but these people, you know, they want to serve in Congress or the Senate or so forth.
Well,
but the people who became millionaires while serving in Congress for 20 or 30 or 40 years, That's the ones we got to be careful
But I think a lot of them crave the power more than the money. They just like being able to run your life.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Oh, mercy. So again...
and they can't think outside of the income tax box.
Yeah.
They
Again,
can't.
if you missed the beginning of the program here, we played a short clip from then candidate Trump saying that you need to simplify the tax code with either the fair tax or the flat tax. And we're trying to point out to him those things are as different as night and day. What we've been talking about with the lobbyists and Congress critters getting rich and looking after their own interests instead of yours, you will continue to get that with the flat tax. The fair tax will, we can't say the fair tax will entirely get rid of lobbying in its entirety, but one of the biggest issues that is lobbied now will go away under the fair tax. So you're not going to mess with the fair tax.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So,
we need to do our call to action.
We got about 2.5 minutes left.
First
here.
off, that little video, you can find it very, very easily. You go to fairtax.org and up on the top, click videos, and you'll see it on the page. Okay.
As far as call to action, we haven't mentioned PopVox in a while. You need to go to PopVox, POPVOX.com. Give it your address so it knows what congressional district you're in, and then you can go in and make comments on any piece of legislation before Congress, including the one about making diapers a qualified medical expense if you want to. But we would suggest that you go to H.R. 25, the fair tax, and put in a good word for the fair tax there. The percentage of people on PopVox that is supporting the fair tax is astronomical. It's over 95% last time we looked, but the numbers are fairly low. But so we need to get a lot of people in there saying that this is a hot button issue for me, because all the Congress critters at least have one staff person who is dedicated to watching popvox.com. So if you want to promote the fair tax, that's a really good way to do it.
And you can not only go to PopVox and put in your 2 cents, that may be minimizing it, but go on social media and tell people you went on to PopVox and what it is. And
then your friend says, "What's PopVox?" And you explain it to them.
Yep. So, anyways, write letters to the editor. Okay. You don't have to be an expert in the fair tax. You can just write a letter of support, because generally these newspapers also have websites, and your letter to the editor will be on their website, and then they'll be back and forth. That's good for us.
Yes. Okay. But if you're going to write a letter to the editor, don't try to make everything about the fair tax at one time. Pick 1 or 2 points, develop those 2 points and go at it, because most of the time you got a 250, 300 word limit on a letter to the editor.
Yep.
And one more, share these videos.
Yep, share these videos. You can find the FAIRtax Guys, FAIRtax Power Radio all over the place. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Parler, Instagram. I know I'm leaving some out. We've got podcasts that go out on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and iHeart, and we have our own app, which is free. You can go to the App Store and download the FAIRtax Power Radio app. Okay. And Gmail us if you have a question or comment or a complaint. TheFairtaxGuys@gmail.com.
And that's it for this time. We are flat out of it. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
FAIRtax Guys reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are the
FAIRtax Guys.
Coming at you from so many different directions, you're going to have to get hit by one of them.
Well, here's what he means by that, okay? FAIRtax Power Radio can be found on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Parler, Gab, Instagram, Periscope. Where else?
And if you've got the online podcast at Spreaker, iHeartRadio. We're on Facebook Live every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. We got a YouTube channel, Apple Podcast. And we are on, at the moment, 3 terrestrial radio stations. WTOB in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, WLSC in Laura, South Carolina, and WAME in Statesville. So if you live in any of those areas, you can listen over the air. But all 3 of those places stream online, so you can catch us on Sunday morning on the radio stations as well.
And let's not forget our website, FAIRtaxGuys.com. So plenty of places to find us.
All right. And until we meet again, reminding you that the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.